sort of started right into the commercial real estate world. Was there a spark or something that just kind of tipped you off to, hey, this is my path, this is where I want to go?
Well, what gave me an idea was, at the time, a young lady named Sharon Lechter wrote a book. She talked about building wealth through cash flowing assets. I realized that if I wanted to focus, because in life you get rewarded for focus. And if I focus on commercial real estate and pick a niche, then I have a high probability to become wealthy if I stick to it.
What is it about that particular asset class that you like? I know you said you're now getting into multifamily, but it sounds like a lot of it has been industrial and retail. Maybe talk a little bit about why you prefer those asset classes and the success that's come with that.
A lot of my friends were going into multifamily in the city of Chicago. I wanted to do things differently. And to do things differently was...
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I am here with Ben Reinberg. Ben's a trailblazing entrepreneur, commercial real estate visionary, and wealth building expert with over 30 years of transformative industry experience, of which we're going to hear all about today. Ben, first, let me just say thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I'm excited for the conversation. Really looking forward to the next bit of time we have together.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. We'll say thank you so much for having me. What a privilege, and I appreciate it. I love coming on to different shows throughout the world. I come on frequently during the week and just to add value, and love to get to know your audience and see how I could add value to what you guys are trying to accomplish. So I appreciate you having me here.
Perfect. And doctor is fine one time, but it's way too formal. So you don't have to stick with that. Jason is fine. I spent much of my career trying to convince people just to call me Jason. And I mean, there's people I've worked with.
Being a large medical office and veterinarian office owner, I'm used to addressing all of our tenants by doctor. And so it seems to be a natural progression. But I will definitely use Jason. So Jason, it's great to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, let's just start with hearing, a bit about your background. Kind of let's hear the story of you and what's brought you to where you are today.
Well, Jason, as you're probably aware, I'm from Chicago, and that's where my headquarters are. That's where I was born and raised, in Chicago, and Chicago is still my home. I live in Laguna. I work out of our West Coast office in Newport Beach. And for me, Chicago was the place where my roots were. It was the place that inspired me to become not only an entrepreneur, but in business, to start Alliance Consolidate Group of Companies 32 years ago. I've been a real estate veteran in commercial real estate, strictly as a principal. I started when in my early 20s. I was looking to build wealth. I realized from watching the Crowns and the Pritzkers and Sam Zells and all the different mentors I had in Chicago, what was the key strength to building wealth. And it applies in my new book, Hard Assets and Hard Money for Hard Times, which I explain how to build wealth through hard assets. And to me, that was the strategy as a young man. I said, well, I want to have my own business. I don't want to work for anyone. And I didn't come from money. So if I said, well, if I don't come from money, how am I going to build wealth? And one of the biggest asset classes to ever build wealth in the history of this country is through real estate. Every institution, wealthy family, sovereign fund flees towards hard asset, has a significant portion of their portfolio in hard assets. So I said, this is something that I have to learn. This is something important. I read a book about how important cash flow was. And I realized, having a financial background, I was also a CPA when I graduated Indiana University, and I was fortunate enough to be able to take the CPA exam and pass, and use that and work for an accounting firm for a year, learn, network, and realize this is something I could do. And it goes into even the last chapter of my book, and I talk about this as mindset, Jason, because as a young man in his 20s, not coming from money, I had nothing to lose. So the only thing I had was up here, and how I was going to control my emotions and how I was going to dictate where I was going to progress in my career. And so hard assets were important to me because it was my path to financial freedom. It was my path to opportunities. It was my path to networking. And so when I started Alliance, first deal was a 95,000 square foot industrial building that we syndicate that I tell online to people. And it's something I'm proud of because that one deal alone and the hundreds and thousands of transactions we've done in our career, that deal I could reflect upon of what were the lessons I learned in life and in the business and the struggles and the challenges we had in the deal. So it was a culmination of a lot of events that have grown me and carried me to a man who runs Alliance with offices around the country and assets in 30 different states. And where I am now in my career, I look back at that one deal and to inspire anyone that's listening to this show that wants to be in real estate or commercial real estate that follows you is you can do it. And people say, well, what's the secret? Well, the secret is working on yourself, being the best version of yourself, being emotionally compatible and intelligent, and being able to handle your mind and know that not every day is going to be perfect. And I'm sure you've been through this. Not every day in life is perfect. We go through challenges. And it's how you respond, not react to life, can carry you through to where success is. And so, as a young man starting in Chicago, where I'd wake up and it would be dark outside, I'd go leave my office, it would be dark outside. How are you going to deal with all that as you go through life? And so for me, it was real world thinking and real world taste of transactions that got me to this point. And so coming from Chicago, we're a big office and industrial market. That's where I cut my teeth. I'm an expert in retail. We're one of the leaders in medical office ownership in the United States. And now we just opened a multifamily division to take advantage of the opportunities we see forthcoming in the next 24 months. We have different asset classes. We have our own insurance company now to insure our properties as well as all our colleagues around the country to give them better rates and service. We have a licensing company now where a lot of businesses, Jason, are not in compliance in the cities and counties they're in, which we learned in our company. And so we're offering that to people to help. So what I'm excited about is I'm in the prime of my career now, and I'm here to create impact and speaking and teaching a lot and doing things a little bit differently than when I started my career. So for everyone listening out there, is that you will morph and progress in your life, but you got to put the work in and you got to keep pushing forward no matter where you are.
Yeah, that's great, Ben. I mean, there's a lot to a lot to unpack there. I want to kind of go back to the beginning though, because you said, it sounds like you sort of started right into the commercial real estate world. Was there a spark or something that just kind of tipped you off to, hey, this is my path. This is where I want to go. Sounds like, you kind of had that decision uh, pretty early on. A lot of people, myself included, use another career and then decide. But sounds like you've kind of been focused on that for most of your professional life.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea?
Well, what gave me an idea was at the time a young lady named Sharon Lechter wrote a book and she talked about building wealth through cash flowing assets. And I took that to heart and I read that book a couple times in a 48-hour period. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. After going to the library and researching on microfiche and looking at different articles and reading about how these wealthy families were building wealth through commercial real estate and hard assets, I realized that if I wanted to focus, because in life you get reward for focus. And if I focus on commercial real estate and pick a niche, then I have a high probability to become wealthy. If I stick to it, I deal with the ups and downs and I become an expert. And that's what I did. My mindset was, okay, Ben, you're going to dig in, you're going to double down, you're going to become an expert in what you're doing. And that will produce the results that you're seeking. Because I could see the desired outcome I wanted. So I said, well, how do I get there? Well, I'm going to leverage into talent, leverage into resources, find out who can help me, be vulnerable, learn how to raise money, and go for it. And I realized that, Jason, that uh, if I don't succeed, I'll just go back to the place I started. And being a CPA and having that foundation, it gave me, said, hey, I can always get a job as an accountant if I need to. Now, there was no way in hell I was going back to accounting because I didn't like it. But it was my motivator saying, well, if this is the career I want, I have to focus, go for it. If I have to work 7 days a week, countless hours, sleep in the office, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful. And I'm going to be the best at it. And I'm going to do, that was my competitive nature. And so for me, Sharon was very influential on me when I came to that. Now, what's interesting about this story is when I had a podcast, I invited her on the podcast and I told her the story of her inspiring me. And we were friends. She had no idea. And she was just in tears when I was telling the story because she realized how much of an impact she had on me and she didn't even know. And then my new TV show, she came on in my first season as a guest, and we just have a wonderful relationship. So you want to talk about a lady that inspired me with the words on a page to full circle, not only being friends and colleagues with her, but also having her on my shows is just so rewarding to me. To thank her and let her know how much she means to me was a big impact on me. And so she had that influence for the words she had on the page, which inspired me and said, now do I see the research that makes sense to own hard assets. I also read her story, which reinforced saying, this is definitely the place and the path I need to go on. And that's what I did.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Mentorship is such a powerful component to success, and something that's influenced me a lot as well. So I love that story. I also really love that you mentioned microfiche, because I'm guessing that, a number of people listening probably don't even know what that is, but I am very familiar with researching with microfiche. So that's fantastic. I don't fairly certain that word has not been said on this podcast before. So that was a great.
I'm here to change the game. It's interesting because now all of a sudden, especially with AI and the internet and everything, we could just Google and look things up or use ChatGPT or Gemini or all these other services. I mean, if people are growing up in our generation and went back and said, what's microfiche, right? I actually have to go to the library to research. Yeah, I had to go to the library, pull up an article, read the article instead of it coming up. I mean, think about the work that it took just to learn something compared to now and how efficient it is. So, but that's what I did. I took the time and mastered it and say, where are people building wealth? And like I said, hard assets was the answer.
Yeah. It's the ability to research things certainly has changed drastically since my younger years. So you started with, you said, a 95,000 square foot industrial space. What is it about that particular asset class that you like? I know you said you're now getting into multifamily, but sounds like a lot of it has been industrial and retail. Maybe talk a little bit about why you prefer those asset classes, and the success that's come with that.
Well, I cut my teeth in industrial and office. Chicago is a big industrial and office market, as well as other asset classes. And so a lot of my friends were going into multifamily in the city of Chicago. I wanted to do things differently. And to do things differently was industrial and office. And so the 95,000 square foot multi-tenant industrial building was a great deal. It was in a wonderful suburb, 20 minutes from O'Hare Airport. Captains of industry were coming in. Brand new development. They converted a Navy base into a residential, office, industrial, medical complex, community center, the whole thing. That was our next door neighbor. And so I realized this is a really good opportunity. This is going to be a growing area. great demographics. I'm going to take advantage of it. Like I said, I'm also an expert in retail, but we have a large concentration. We're a huge medical office owner. And so industrial and office is where I started. I thought my career, I wanted to be like Sam Zell. So I said, okay, well, if I'm going to mirror equity office company he had, I need to buy skyscrapers and multi-tenant office buildings and large office campuses. And I started doing that. And I realized with the office campus, I remember talking to him at length about this too. He said, Ben, office is going to be a dying breed, especially suburban office. People aren't going to need as much space. He was very like a futurist, which I'm a futurist. And I learned that skill from watching him and others to say, okay, I got to start predicting things that happen before they happen just by watching the environment. And so I developed that skill as a young man. And so I said, okay, well, I need to pivot. So we talked to our investors and I said, okay, well, the human body's never going out of style. Let's get into medical office. Well, there was this little niche when I started called DaVita dialysis. And I realized that kidney disease was growing rapidly within our country. And so we started buying and developing with this tenant years ago. I think we started about 25 years ago. And what was interesting is some guy named Warren Buffett bought 2.5 million shares of the tenant's stock, and we were ahead of the game. So all of a sudden the credit jumped and the value of the properties that we owned with that tenant significantly jumped. And then we started selling them, and that launched us into the medical office industry because we started with dialysis, and then dialysis became orthopedic, dermatology, surgery centers, hospitals, pediatrics, anything that you and your family. And then we got into the veterinarian office space years after that because a friend of ours said, well, if you're doing medical, veterinary has a very similar flavor to medical. Why don't you do that? Then all of a sudden we started buying, VCAs and all the different clinics. And now we own a horse and cattle farm, surgery center and clinic in Elgin, Texas, and reptiles, and all these different animals are huge now in that industry. So it kind of evolved into that. And it's why I love that asset class. I love medical office. I love veterinarian office. We've done really well for our investors in that space. And so for me, I had to start somewhere. And being from Chicago is industrial and office. I still love industrial, still do industrial. But it's evolved because to me, as we've been through different recessions and different cycles, even the cycle we're doing now, the human body doesn't go out of style. And you're always going to need it. So we found great success and solitude in that asset class.
Yeah. I mean, I think looking at, as you said, of being a futurist, kind of looking at where the needs are going to be over the next decade or two or three, I would argue that medical office space is something that's only going to grow as we have, such an aging population. So, I think that's a really smart space to be in. Do you have markets that you prefer? Coming from Chicago, you live in Southern California. So those areas, like those major cities, tend to be places that people suggest we shouldn't invest in. That's probably an entire podcast conversation on its own. I don't agree with that sentiment, but regardless, you are someone who has made money in the cities. So I'd love to kind of hear your take on market selection and what your preference is in that type of when you're out there looking for whether it's a new market or just markets that you invest in already.
Well, just to teach your audience something, when I started in the business back in the early 90s, it was a local and regional business. The internet wasn't prevalent. It's not like, so it was where was drivability and walkability to find properties. So maybe drive to Michigan or to Indiana or Ohio or Minnesota or Missouri, or Kentucky. These were markets we were looking in when I started, especially in Chicago, such a big market. So I started there. And then as we grew, I said, okay, we could start going into other areas. So we started in the South and Southeast. We're a huge property owner in Texas and Louisiana and Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas. And we love those areas. We love the Southwest. We love Mountain West. And this is a lot of where we invest our capital because we're looking for population growth And especially, Jason, as we got into medical and we said, well, where are people migrating and where are the good school systems, and whether it's Orlando or Tampa or the different areas, or, it could be Denver, Colorado, all these different areas you look in. We look at areas where it fits our box, whether it's 50,000 people in a 5-mile radius, annual rent growth in the income streams. We look at the credit of our tenants. We look at where the good populations, where the good schools, where the communities and the families moving to. And so we started migrating with them when it came to commercial real estate. People were moving out of Chicago, even though it's a big city. People were moving out of New York. People were moving out of big cities that we love to be in. And we still are. But we realized that where is the population growth, and where's that going to sustain the services that our tenants provide? When it comes to industrial, it's a little bit different because Chicago's a 24/7 city. So is Seattle. So is Miami. So is Savannah, Georgia is a wonderful market for industrial. It's growing rapidly. So depending on the asset class is going to depend on where we invest our capital and where we look. Multifamily, it's the same thing. Where are the opportunities? When it comes to retail, same thing. Where's population growth? Where do tenants want to be? Where their density enough to support, whether it's boutique shops to the nationals to grocery store chains, where do we want to be? And a lot of it has to do with where's the migration of the population, school systems, et cetera. And so depending on the asset class, it's going to depend on where we invest. But we have found, I would say the last couple of decades, is the South, Southeast, and Southwest have had tremendous impact on our portfolio to provide stability and great returns for our investors.
Yeah. That's a point that I guess maybe I should have put together, but hadn't heard it spoken of before, in that the specific, basically that market and asset class have to be looked at independently, basically. I think there's a lot of talk about the South and Southeast and all of that, and it's like, oh yeah, everybody should invest there, but I don't know that I ever thought about it in the way that you just stated, in just that, hey, certain markets are better for certain asset classes. So it just always I feel like you always come back to, real estate is ultimately a local game, even if you're someone like yourself who are you're playing in that space, but in many different locations. It's still, you need to know the local dynamics of wherever you're investing in when it comes to
there's no doubt. It's going to be, there's two things that real estate will always be. It'll be a local game. You have to know the local market. You got to have boots on the ground. You got to have a comfort level. You got to know in and outs and the politics and what's going on in the different governments and licensing and all that. And secondly, which is really important, is that, so the first thing is you got to know the market and the real estate fundamentals behind the market. But it's also really important that you understand how the asset class is impacted in those communities, because some markets are medical favored and heavy. Some have multifamily you need to be aware of. Some markets are 24/7 cities and leaning in industrial and the push for industrial or the push for retail. So knowing what these governments want, knowing what the area needs and the demand. So boots on the ground and understanding the marketplace is really good. The other thing that's important is understanding, why are people in the market? Why are they going to the market? Why are they migrating? People are migrating out of California for a reason, taxes. So understanding and listening to what the market tells you will create great success, and then incorporating the foundation of the real estate fundamentals in each market is critical. And I feel the biggest need in our business is people understanding the real estate fundamentals. What do they mean? What are vacancy rates and absorption rates and market rent and credit worthiness of the tenants and default risk and parking, if it's medical or veterinary. I mean, there's so many different nuances. And what I love about commercial real estate, especially now that I'm 56 in the prime of my career, is it's a marathon business, Jason. And you have to go through a lot of deals to get to this point to protect your investments. But it's also the knowledge you gain over the years, which is priceless, because then you know the right questions to ask when you are buying deals or managing them or selling them, because questions are everything. I teach my staff every day, what questions are you asking to get the answers you're seeking to make your time efficient?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, again, not necessarily heard it put that way, but yeah, asking questions is, and I mean, asking questions and listening to the answers, like really being curious about how, you can improve yourself, the business, your environment, whatever it's applicable to. You mentioned that you have, kind of, I don't know exactly how this developed, but you have some businesses that have, sort of, I guess, vertically integrated to your real estate, with, you mentioned insurance company and also licensing. Tell us a bit about kind of how that came about. I guess it sounds like maybe insurance came first, but I understand why people do, I think a lot of times we're like, oh, this is a problem I have in my business. I'm going to figure out a solution to it. That means me doing it. And so, but how did that work, I guess, tactically for you? And then, you said with the insurance and, well, both, you're now able to provide that service to others. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think in my career, you kind of get fed up seeing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with our CRM, which we just create our own CRM. You start working with these companies and outside vendors, and you don't have the same control, and the costs are getting out of hand, and the service is dwindling, and the property management or other team leaders or staff members complain. And you start, as a founder and a CEO, you take a step back and say, well, what can we do better as a company? And so when we looked at insurance and we saw insurance rates going through the roof, we said there's got to be a better way. So we looked into starting our own insurance company and said, if we could provide the same services that our other agencies are providing to us, and we just step in their shoes, we'll have more control, better return for investors, better policies, and cheaper costs for our tenants. And maybe we can make a little money from it too. So we said, this is a win-win because we can leverage talent and reduce the cost of our insurance, have more control, provide a better product for our tenants, which basically mitigates risk for our investors. And so it's just, you go through enough pain in life and you see things and you say, you know what? Maybe we take a step back and make things better. Same thing with the licensing company. Same thing with AI. We said, okay, we're not happy with our CRM company. We can't do certain things, marketing, they have certain functions. AI is growing rapidly. Let's look at building our own CRM. So there's always enough pain or a struggle going on inside the company to say, let's make a change. And that's what we do. And being a futurist and willing to change and willing to make an investment in time and money into people is something I've thrived on in my career. So for us, for everyone out there listening, is that if you're struggling with something, it means that you need to change. Struggle equals change. And so, just like communication equals wealth, struggle means change. Changing allows you for growth. And one thing I've learned in my career is that if I'm open to change, I will grow. And I will continue to grow and improve and become the leader and the thought leader that I need to be in the industry. And so for me, I embrace the struggle because I know it's a clue saying, okay, Ben, something's got to change. You have to change. Something inside the company has changed. Service we're providing, it's not working. And that's one thing is I always tell people, if something's not working in life, pivot, because, and don't look back. They have a saying, burn the boats or burn the bridge. And I don't mean like burn bridges like relationships. I'm saying burn what was happening behind you and don't look back. And don't Monday morning quarterback your decisions. A lot of us think, oh, maybe the grass isn't always greener. It's not about if the grass is always greener. It's all about, hey, I'm going to take the chance because I'm struggling and I'm going to eliminate what wasn't working and put my energy and my mind to what is working. And that's what we do.
Yeah. That's great. Great advice. I'm curious, the licensing company. What are you referring to? What actual product or service are you providing for people? That I mean, I have some guesses, but I'm actually not 100% sure.
Well, we learned that a lot of businesses in every industry in the United States are not in compliance because people just don't know. We looked at our portfolio in different, where you'll be in different municipalities. There are 109,000 municipalities in the United States, counties, states, villages, towns, cities, and they have licensing requirements to run your business. And so we have a platform that we designed with a partner of ours that you can go on our website, our platform for free, and you can look at what licenses you're missing, and you could establish any licenses that are expired or missing or that you need immediately on our platform. It's a one-stop shop. And the reason why it's so important, I'll give you the because this is really important why we did this. People are getting fined, their potential jail time if you're not willing to do it. It has significant, it could shut your business down. All your vendors you work with in business, if they're not properly licensed, they could be out of business or they could be shut down, and that can impact projects you're working on. It could impact things you need to get done. And all of us depend on proper licensing. So I tell people, make sure the people you're doing business with, in our case, our tenants, if our tenants aren't properly licensed, here's another thing that's really important to go back to insurance. If you don't have the proper licensing, insurance companies don't have to honor claims because a lot of that are outs in their policies is that if you're not adhering to uh, state and county and municipal laws, they don't have to honor insurance. So if you have a building that burns down or so theft in your office or space or wherever it may be, they don't have to honor the claim. So insurance companies are starting to use this platform. Municipalities are looking at using it because they need revenue. So they're going to crack down, they continue to crack down, increase on licensing laws that you need. And so for us, we said, well, let's use it for ourselves, but also let's offer it to our colleagues around the country that whether they're in commercial real estate or they're a doctor or they own a cleaning business or whatever it might be, you can go on the platform, put in your address, put in your entity name and your information, and for free say, okay, I'm missing licenses. And then you could dig deep and say, okay, now I got to establish them, renew them, whatever. Not only the municipalities are cracking down, but insurance companies and your loans too. If you don't have proper insurance or the lenders are looking at this and saying, okay, we gave your business a loan for equipment or whatever it might be, and if you're not properly licensed, they can recall loans, they put you in default, they have covenants. And so it's really important because a lot of businesses, Jason, are just not in compliance.
Yep. Yep. And it's such a smart, I guess, service to offer because you have, I think in a lot of like there are certain industries that it's obvious you need a license, right? Like we need a medical license like that. Typically everybody knows their doctor has a medical license or should have a medical license. I think in most instances, people should know that, their contractor needs a license, but it wasn't like, it wasn't maybe clearly obvious to me that you need a business license at each of the properties that you own. If you own, multifamily, or that's what I know. But ultimately, there are things. I think there's a lot in the licensing space that maybe we don't know that we need, or that might not know that we're out of compliance. So being able to I guess do that search and figure it out, and then have help getting in compliance is a really smart service that I can say from firsthand can save you on fines, because we've been fined for not knowing that our business license was out of date, or whatever, I guess whatever it was. But regardless, I do think it makes a lot of sense. And as you sort of alluded to in the insurance business, you're helping your own companies, your own properties, your own investments by bringing some of that in house. So I really
Not
like.
only that, we could show the case study of, hey, on our portfolio, we save money, and we could talk to our colleagues and competitors out there and say, let us show you what we did. Come on in, let us save money on your portfolio and offer a great service. And it's because we're knee deep in what we do that it's proven like, okay, well, if Alliance is doing this and they're willing to help us, let them look at our portfolio and price it out and give us the opportunity to give them that business to help them. So we're opening the vault and saying, hey, if you're in commercial real estate or you're in real estate or you buy residential or whatever you need or any type of insurance, let us show you what we do and price it out for you and benefit you, just like we're doing ourselves. And we're living it. We're actually in the same shoes as the people we're offering the services to. So for me, it's really a nice opportunity to tell people. It's not like we're an insurance agency and we don't understand the business and what we're doing. We're saying, no, 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 we know about flood. We know about property and casualty. We know about terrorism insurance. And we'll make sure we save you money and give you the proper guidance, just like you know what you need to do.
Well, Ben, I want to switch gears so I can make sure I get to ask you the question I ask every guest. The first one is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. You've had a lot of success. You've been in commercial real estate for a while now, and but you also state you're in the prime of your career, so obviously you're not looking to be done yet. But so what's your why? What's motivating you at this point?
What motivates me is I like helping people. I just spoke at my daughter's business school at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. I spoke at the business school where they have a large real estate program. And I've done this in the past. I've spoken at a lot of the Big Ten schools and in the city of Chicago as well. And what my why is, I really enjoy teaching the business. I feel the right way. I feel explaining what to expect when you get out in the real world and you leave the institutions of universities and colleges and high school, and giving people a real sense of what's important. So in the talk at Cornell, to give you an example, we talked about communication. We talked about things that the university at an Ivy League school doesn't teach. And the professor and the dean were blown away because they know this. They know that, hey, we don't talk about certain things of communication. We don't talk about listening. We don't talk about personal development. We don't talk about how do you deal with your mind? How do you control your emotions, which are all critical things in the workforce. And as you get out into real life and relationships and enhancing relationships. So I talk about the fat lady behind the curtain. I talk about the things that people don't want to talk about. And it's an eye opening. And so for me, that's something I really enjoy. And it's something I've kind of included in my day to day is speaking, enjoying. I wasn't on social media until 6 years ago. And so for me, I enjoy that. If you follow me on Instagram and all the different platforms, it's not about me. I don't need the attention. Okay. I am just fine in life. But what I like to do is I like to help people, and hopefully my experiences shorten the learning curve. So when I was at Cornell and I said, if there's one person in this room that I changed their life, I did my job. Because I know as a young man coming from Chicago is that I needed help getting started in business. I had no one to lean into. There was no mentors. Mentors wasn't a real fancy word when I was younger. And I said, if someone can learn or be impacted by a word, a phrase, a sentence, I say that carries through with them the rest of their lives, then that's wonderful. And that's what I enjoy. That's my why. And it's part of why I wrote the book. I wrote the book, Hard Assets and Hard Money for Hard Times, because it wasn't about me. It was the audience and saying, this is how I built wealth. This is how you could build wealth. And I'm going to give you for free a blueprint that you could go on benreinberg.com and download. And you could take classes and you could see the steps and the war stories and being authentic. Because I always felt in business like people don't really share who they are or share that life isn't perfect. And to me, giving that why, that because is extremely important.
You may have just mentioned it, but when people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Well, if you want to invest in commercial real estate and you're a credit investor, you can go to alliancecgc.com. We'll show you how to build wealth and you can leverage into our platform and the different asset classes we invest in. If you want to learn more about me, go to benreinberg.com. You could buy the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You could buy the book in bulk on our website as well. We teach courses. I have a blog that's on the Substack that does really well, where I talk more than just commercial real estate. I talk about all forms of business, what's going on in the world and the economy. It's all about giving value. Everything I do is value driven to the audience. And so if you go on benreinberg.com, you could see where I speak. You could come see me speak if I'm ever speaking in your area. Go on my TV show, The Ben Reinberg Show. It's shot and filmed in different areas, and it's on the USA Today network. I also write a byline for them for every show, and you could see what we do. We interview some of the greatest business minds in the world, and they provide a tremendous amount of value, and we educate our audience and even stop the camera to talk about what just happened to educate you. So a lot of education going on, a lot of value being provided. And so benreinberg.com or alliancecgc.com is a great resource for us.
It's awesome. We'll have all that in the show notes so people can find you. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a fantastic conversation. I appreciate your time and everything that you shared. I think so much more, I'm sure, to learn from you, and so we can all check out your website and the show. And I mean, just a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for being here today. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jason. It was great, and hope the audience got something out of our conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Folks listening, make sure you connect with Ben. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?